Serving the Glades, the Palm Beaches, and all of South Florida. We are Sugar 900, WSWN Belglade. Online at sugar900.com, a Sugar broadcasting station.
Sugar 900 and good morning, South Florida. Welcome on board, everybody. Welcome, Ms. Don Brady. Welcome, Tony. Welcome, Ms. Jacqueline Robinson. Welcome, Queen-Let Jean McAvoy. Welcome, everybody that's listening by way of the radio. Thank you for tuning in to Sugar 900, serving you in 18 South Florida counties and the Bahamas, as well as all around the world at sugar900.com. Listen, for those of you that are on the Facebook, you already see the face of our guest this morning. His name is Mr. Derek Moore, and he's going to be talking with us about his company, which is called Jiganomics. Let's welcome him on by saying a pleasant good morning, Mr. Derek.
Good morning, guys. How's it going?
It is such an honor to have you in the building, Mr. Derek. And look, man, I'm excited. I mean, you got my whole table just spread out with gear. So I can't wait till we get to show the viewers on the live stream your gear. Everybody go ahead, share the live video. Let everybody know that, hey, we're live on with Jiganomics. And they are a super amazing company. So let's talk about Jiganomics. When you say Jiganomics, what does that even mean?
So, Jiganomics is what we initially called the art of jigging. That's how it started. Jiganomics was actually started by my brother AJ Moore. He was in college down at Johnson & Wales in Miami. It started off basically as a hobby, him just making crappie jigs for us to come over here and fish with. And then we kind of set it down for a few years, and then we picked up the love of fishing again over here in Okeechobee, and we just started making it. And at the time, we didn't know what we had. It was just something that we just did for fun or to show off, or basically to get those colors that we couldn't find anywhere else, and we would make them. So that's basically how it started.
So when you say jig, what does it mean to jig?
So when we say jig, jig itself is referring to the type of lure that we're using for crappie. So this is one that we make at home. These are all hand tied. This is one of our grass shrimp jigs. So the jig itself, this is the jig. So we would use this while we're fishing for crappie. And there's a certain motion that you have to use while you're crappie fishing. This is another one. This one is actually made by Muck City Tackle, who is a local company over here in Belglade who produces some of the best crappie jigs that I've ever used. So the jig motion itself, when we say that we're jig fishing, this jig is basically in the water when you're fishing. And you see that tail action on there? Every time you pop your pole, basically, that tail shakes, and those crappies see it, and you get what we like to call the thump. Anybody who you talk to about speck fishing, crappie fishing, who jig fish, if you mention the thump, they're going to know exactly what you're talking about. And once you get that thump, you stuck, you're addicted, that's it.
So that means like fishing, there's like techniques to fishing.
Yes, sir. There's a lot of techniques. There's jig fishing. Even with jig fishing, there's so many different types of techniques that you can use. You can use vertical jigging. You can do blind casting. You can use a cork and jig. There's so many different avenues, and then you have the traditional minnow fishing, which is what most people started off doing, is minnow fishing. Old school with a hook, line, a hook, sinker, cork, and that's just the old school way of doing it.
Now, you say you guys started making your own jigs because you liked the color or you needed a particular color or a color you hadn't seen. Explain that. So colors make a difference?
Yes, sir. So especially with crappie and any other fish, they have particular baits and things that they feed on throughout the year. So we would notice, like during the summer, we would need something that's, a little bit darker. Or during the spring, when they come in to spawn, there's they usually come up to like grass or weed areas and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So what we noticed was that when they come in to feed, they would feed on like minnows and grass, shrimp, and all that kind of stuff. So what my brother did was he created this jig here that's called what we call the grass shrimp. Mm. This was made to imitate a grass shrimp in the weeds, and it started off with him just coming to the lake on the weekends by himself and using it, and it started to work. And then it turned into him coming over here catching fish, and the guys next to him seeing him, hey, what are you using? And of course, at the time, we weren't thinking business wise. We just, give him a jig, same thing we do now, and it started to work. And from that, it just took off. And then you make different jigs basically for different scenarios. So if we're out fishing deep water, you may need this color jig. Or if you're fishing shallow, you may need this color jig. Or if you're fishing and it's cold, you may need a smaller jig with more action. If it's windy outside, you may need a heavier jig to get the jig down to where you want it. That's basically what we came up with. And that's one of the principles behind Jiganomics, is going out there and trying to figure out exactly what these crappie want, when they want it.
So you guys have basically studied how these particular fish eat and what bait they bite for.
Yes, sir. That's a huge part of it.
So now you say you guys started out and now you have a company. What has been the process as far as getting, because you guys are like a real company, you have your own jigs and everything. What was the process of going from really just making it for fun to basically now people want to buy your stuff?
It is a very long process. When people say you have to trust the process, you have to trust the process and stay consistent. How we started out basically was we made a few mistakes. You get the website made and you just start producing jigs and start promoting them on the website. Then we had a gentleman named Arthur Bronson who is over the IFBBA. It's the International Federation of Black Bass Anglers, and they're an organization that primarily does bass fishing. But we had a buddy who passed away, Arthur Joyner from Miami, who introduced us to him, and basically he took us under his wing and just showed us the business side of it. Simple stuff like getting the LLC and the bank accounts, that kind of stuff. The stuff you need to make sure you have. And then from that, it was really not even making the jigs itself. It was building the brand of Jiganomics. So going to different events, giving out free stuff, just getting the word out there basically about what we do.
So basically, you guys are now like a legit business. People all over want to buy your jigs.
Yes, sir.
How does that make you feel, man, that you created something in the world of fishing that people gravitate to?
It's very humbling to know that we have the ability to craft stuff with our hands, with our gifts from God, that we're able to get out there and people want to use. Because at this point, it's not just South Florida or even Florida itself. We're sending jigs to, Georgia, New York, Oklahoma, Alabama, Texas. Our neighbor goes back and forth from here to Cuba, and we actually have our jigs in Cuba as well.
Wow.
So it's very humbling, just because we love crappie fishing, and we know that the people who are purchasing our jigs and supporting us have that same passion that we do.
Absolutely. Now, you guys host a big tournament out here on Lake Okeechobee, right?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, we do.
Let's talk about that. Tell the listeners a little bit about your event that you have.
So the event that we throw, we started about 3 or 4 years ago, just doing like one tournament here and there at different spots. Basically because when people hear Lake Okeechobee, they talk about how it's a good bass fishing lake. But we knew from growing up that there was some really good crappie fishing here. So we said, okay, let's explore the idea of introducing that to the world, which some people already knew down here. So basically, we created what we call the Lake Okeechobee Crappie Series. So it consists of 4 actual tournaments and what we call the Crappie Fest. So let's start with the Crappie Fest. The Crappie Fest is going to be held on December 21st. See that? December 21st at Okeechobee. Basically, if you have any questions about catching crappie on Okeechobee or tips or techniques that you want to use, you can come out to this event. It's a free event. We're going to have a few great companies out there. We're going to have Muck City Tackle. We're going to have HH Rod and Reel, Skipper's Jigs. It's Pro Fishing. They're an apparel company that produces stuff for Lake Okeechobee. We'll be out there, of course, with our equipment and our jigs. We're going to have some games, some giveaways. We're going to have some of the local guides and fishermen who fish in our crappie tournament come out there and give some tips. Just because I feel like a lot of people fish Lake Okeechobee, or they want to, but they may feel intimidated sometimes, but there's nothing to be afraid of. Come out there. These guys are going to give you all the tips. They're going to talk about anything you want to talk about. And basically, we're going to have everything out there set up for you guys to learn how to crappie fish, purchase stuff for crappie fishing, and be able to leave from that event that day and go out there and get that thump.
Wow. So you guys are just changing the world one fisherman at a time.
Yes, sir. That's the goal. One fisherman at a time.
Now, crappie. I'm not no big fisher and all of that, fisherman, which really I don't know a whole lot about fishing. I have been fishing and I know a little bit, but I know enough to know that there's a nickname for crappie, right?
Specs.
I know that much.
Specs.
Man, we love some specs around here. Do you guys only work with specs and crappies, or do you do any type of equipment for other fishes?
So primarily right now, we're focusing on crappie fishing because that's really our area of expertise. Now, we work with some other folks who deal in other type of fishing, like Muck City Angler. Jeff is a great bass angler. So any question that we have bass related, or we have anyone who has questions about bass fishing, we send them over to him.
Right.
Then, of course, we have a few guys that like saltwater fish that focus on catfishing, but us primarily, we're focusing right now on crappie fishing.
Now, could you catch crappies out like in saltwater?
Oh, no, sir.
No.
Not that I know of. But if you can, trust me, we're going to find out.
You'll find out. Now, you brought something with you back there. What is that?
This is what we call a jig pole.
Oh, that's a jig pole.
Yeah, that's a jig pole. So if you're going to go out there and fish, you're going to need at least a pole, but we use these jig poles. You can use a cane pole, telescoping pole, whatever you want to use. This is my baby here. So this is it's made by a company called B&M, who's one of our sponsors. This is what it's called a Sam Heaton super sensitive pole.
Super sensitive.
Yes, sir. So this rod, if you see it here, this is only half of the rod. You see there's 2 parts on here.
I see that.
This rod is 11 foot long.
Wow.
So you see how small the reel is on here.
Yeah.
And it has this, what they call the touch system here, which basically helps you feel the fish bite a little bit more. So basically, if I was out fishing, I would hold this rod at the bottom here, and you just make the smallest movement like that. Smallest movement. And what's going to happen is, while you're fishing, you're going to feel something hit your pole, and if you think about it too much, you're going to miss it. So if you feel that thump, you're going to know it, and you set the hook, and you got your slab. We call it big spec slabs.
Slab.
Slab.
Now, a lot of people say you can't catch big crappies on Lake O.
So
You took a deep breath, Derek.
Florida as a whole, we get some respect for crappie fishing, but it's mostly in northern Florida, like St. Johns River, Crescent Lake. But we have some big crappie down here in South Florida, on Lake Okeechobee. If you look on our Facebook page, I actually posted a picture of a 2.4 pound crappie that was caught at the Pahokee Pier last week. Now, for most states like Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, you can go out there and catch crappie that are 3 pounds, 3.3 pounds, that kind of stuff. So for us down here, if we catch a crappie that's over 2 pounds, that's normally a pretty big spec for us. And regardless of what everybody else says, if you catch a 2 pound crappie, you're going to be excited. Lake Okeechobee down here is more so known for our numbers. You can come down here when they're biting and catch your limit of crappie, which, by the way, is 25 fish per day, and they must be at least 10 inches or larger. So we got some big crappie down here, but we're known more for numbers, but that's kind of the purpose of our tournament as well, because we're only weighing in 7 fish, and we're weighing in the 7 biggest specs that you catch for that day. You're bringing those 7 biggest, and we weigh them, and we go from there.
Now, your event, the Lake Okeechobee Crappie Fest, is on December 21st from 9 until 2 at Okeechobee. Where's Okeechobee?
That is on the north side of the lake in the city of Okeechobee. It's directly across on the south side from Scott Driver, which is one of the boat ramps up there. Okeechobee used to be like a campground. It's kind of retired now, but we still host events over there as well. So it's in the city of Okeechobee. If you just follow the road all the way around, you'll run straight into it.
Now, when you're doing crappie fishing, is this something that you do like on the riverbank, or you have to go out in a boat, or can you go out in a boat?
So you can do it from both. Us primarily, we grew up fishing from the bank. So most of the fishing that we do is from the bank, but you can do it from the bank. You can do it from fishing piers. You can do it from the boat. But the tournament itself is a boat-only tournament. We may possibly work into something from the bank, but primarily right now, the tournaments are from the boat.
Awesome. Now, what's the largest crappie you've caught, Derek?
Largest crappie I've caught, a little over 2 pounds. But then again, I have a weird story with the fishing. So I've been fishing since I was a kid, and then I hit this stage when I was like 13 or 14. Where I hated fishing.
Really?
I didn't want nothing to do with it. I didn't want to go fishing. I didn't want to see a pole. And then I don't know what happened, but when I turned like 18 or 19, I fell in love with it again. And then I got my first car, and then it was over from there. Wow. But a little over 2 pounds, but I'm hoping to get out of the state and catch my first 3-pounder next year. So...
Let me ask you, there, how is it that you guys could go out, and I asked Jeff the same thing, and just sit there all day, man, and sometimes, you guys don't catch nothing.
That's part of fishing. That's part of the love of fishing. If I go out there and I see, okay, this isn't a day where I'm going to drop any colored jig in the water and catch them, that's where the part of fishing that people hate comes into play. You have to sit there and figure out what these fish want, what color they want, how deep you're going to fish to catch them, the presentation. You can literally have a crappie sitting right here. If you put that bait right here in front of them, it's not going to hit it. You got to figure out where they're at, if they're on the bottom, if they're shallow, if they're on structure. That's part of what makes a fisherman. Being able to go out there and pick apart the situation and the conditions and being able to produce fish. Now, there's some days where we go out there and we do all that and we still don't catch anything. Those are the days that are frustrating. Those are the days where on the ride home I say, I'm putting my rods up and I ain't fishing no more. The next morning, what I'm doing, I'm back out there trying again. But that's You have to have the love for fishing to be able to do that, though. That's one of the biggest things.
There's a lot of environmentalists there that are on the Treasure Coast area. And, I think they do a lot of saltwater fishing out on that end. Mm-hmm. But they make a lot of complaints about Lake Okeechobee being, like, I guess, infected or something. Let's talk about it. What are your thoughts on the lake?
Yeah, let's talk about that. So the issue is that when Lake Okeechobee's is being discharged to the east and west, there's some algae in the water that goes out there, and I guess it contaminates the water. People are making an issue about Lake Okeechobee. 93% of the water that comes in that's in Lake Okeechobee is not from Okeechobee. It comes from the north. Right. So we're basically just like the toilet bowl of Florida. Everything from up by Disney World, all the pollutants from the fertilizer that people use on the farms, the yards, everything. Septic tanks ends up in the lake. So that, along with, they come out and they spray the lake with these pesticides and herbicides and stuff that what it does is it kills the vegetation on top of the water. Mm-hmm. When it dies, it sinks to the bottom. And those new plants can't germinate at the bottom because there's no sunlight.
Right.
So, and those natural plants would normally filter the water and filter all this algae out. But there's no plants to filter, so the algae just builds up and builds up and builds up. So at our Crappie Fest, actually, we're going to have a company out there called We Do Boats. And they make boats that focus on mechanical harvesting. So basically, instead of them going out there and spraying the lake to kill these plants, this company actually makes boats that can go out there and pick up this vegetation out the water and take it out without spraying.
Wow.
That way you don't create that muck at the bottom. You don't have stuff going to the bottom, and those plants and those plants that are on the bottom of the lake are able to germinate, and then we get our natural filters back.
What is the name of that company again?
We Do Boats.
We Do Boats. How popular are they? Are they really? Because that would be amazing if they were taking care of the lake.
They do a lot of stuff locally at some of like the smaller lakes, but they haven't been able to get on Lake Okeechobee. And we just want to provide an opportunity for the public to come out and see these boats and see what they can do, and hopefully we can try to make a change and help our lake.
So who's the better fisherman, you or your brother?
I'm not gonna lie. My brother is the fisherman. My brother can go out there if nobody else is catching fish and make those crappie bite.
What?
I get frustrated. I put my rod down. I watch him. I'll go and get the same jig he's using. Put it on there. I can't do it like he can.
Wow.
He's the fisherman.
And has there ever been a time that you just you knew that you're gonna be something great, or y'all's company would be something big?
To be honest, I don't think we've ever had that one moment yet where we've said that we know we're very humble and just focus on what we're doing. So if that moment has come, it probably hasn't been big enough for me to stop and say, wow, we have something. But to be honest, it may be today, being able to come on the radio and talk about something that we always did for fun as a kid. Talk about crappie fishing and showing off different jigs. And that's something that, I never really thought about would be able to happen, coming on here and talking to the public about something that we do for fun.
Well, I mean, you do it for fun, but hey, you got people depending on you, man. You're like a real live business out here, brother.
I appreciate that.
What stores, do you dream of seeing your jigs in?
So, I would want to get our jigs, which we're working on now, and more so the smaller mom and pop stores, because I feel like it's really important to support the small local businesses, because when you purchase something from a small local business or a small business in general, you're directly helping the person who owns that business. Yeah. I wouldn't mind being in like Bass Pro and Cabela's. but I want to focus on building relationships with stores that I can pick up the phone and call the owner.
Wow.
Like when we work with Larry from Muck City Tackle, he's the owner of the company, but I can call him up right now and say, hey, Larry, I need this color jig and this size, and he'll make it. And then we're able to relay stuff like that to other bait and tackle shops, and we're able to build those relationships with other stores. So really, if I can get our jigs in, well, I want to say every state in America, of course.
Yeah.
But just around some of the bigger lakes in the country, that'll be enough for me, because I know what's for us is for us, and, you know, we're just working towards that.
Now, you make every jig with your hand, or are they made by machines? How do y'all make these things?
If I can take this jig apart, I would. But so the gold head on there and the hook, we get shipped to us. But everything else, we have to wrap this tail on. We have to tie this chenille on there. And what we've been focusing on lately is focusing on quality over quantity. So I can easily go home and crank out 200, 300 of these a day.
Wow.
But they may not be the best quality of jigs.
Okay.
So I focus on more. So I'll make 10 jigs, and I'll go through each jig and make sure that there's no imperfections and focus on detail. So if you look at like this jig that I have here, the tail on it is what we call like a fluorescent, you can say green. But if you look closely, there are 2 red strings on there. That's the detail that we're trying to focus on now, because bait fish, when crappie see red, they think of it as a injured fish. That makes them more susceptible to try to eat it. So focusing on small stuff like that on every jig. So imagine tying 100 of these and having to make sure that all these legs are even and those red legs are even. And it's just stuff like that that's focusing more on quality than quantity, and just making sure that we put out the best product that we can for people who are, because people are paying money for this,
Right.
And I want them to be able to say, hey, those guys make a good product. So
Now, can you reuse a jig?
yes, sir. This jig, with the jigs that we're making now, you can probably catch, if you don't lose a jig on a hang up, you're gonna catch over 100 fish on one of our jigs, if not more than that.
Yeah. So, and how much does a jig like that cost?
So this type, we're selling 12 of them for $18 because we have people who buy these jigs beginning of the season, and the end of the season they're still using the same pack of jigs. So we have you have those types, and then I'm not sure what Larry sells his for, but his jigs are at a very reasonable price.
Now you say, I'm sorry, you say season. So crappie fishing is only done seasonal?
Depends on who you ask. I know some folks who will only fish in the spring when they are spawning because they're easier to catch.
Okay.
But you can go out and catch crappie year round, whether it's spring, summer, winter, fall, whether it's hot, cold. Those fish don't stop eating, and they do not leave the water. So no matter what time you go out there, those fish are out there somewhere.
Okay.
So
that makes a lot of sense. Man, for those of you that are listening, I'm Brother Church Boy. Here in front of me today is Mr. Derek Moore. He is one of the owners of Jiganomics, and they have a Lake Okeechobee Crappie Fest, which is happening. It's a free event on December 21st from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. up at Okeechobee. Come out and learn the tricks and tips you need to catch crappie on Lake O. So what are y'all going to have out there as we wrapping it up now? What kind of food or what y'all going to be doing besides teaching people how to catch crappies?
we're gonna have some vendors out there doing food, like chicken wings, conch fritters, that kind of stuff. We'll have some games, a bunch of giveaways. I love giving away free stuff. That's kind of my problem now. I end up going out to sell stuff.
Oh, you too?
And I'm like, here, take this, try this. So that, and while we're on the air, I want to give a special thanks to our sponsors who contribute to our events and help us, just who believe in us. So B&M Poles is a big one. Fast Break, It's Pro Fishing, Mid-South Super Jigs, Muck City Angler, Okeechobee Fishing Headquarters, Gerard's Bait and Tackle, Charlie Brewer Slider Baits, Lakeside Lure and Tackle. They're actually a bait and tackle shop that's out of the state that believes in us that much that they sponsored our event down here.
Wow. You guys are blowing up, Derek. So as far as in fishing, is it similar to like football? You got people that stand around and watch football. So do people like watch you guys do your tournaments and stuff?
They come out to the weigh-ins, yes, sir. But most people don't have it in them to sit out there all day in that sun and wait for us to catch a fish. Now, I can because I love watching people fish and seeing what they're doing in different techniques. But for the most part, nah.
Awesome. So I'm looking forward to just seeing you guys, on the big stage, the big screen, and, in the big stores. And, you just never know. Hey, you guys are on to something big. People are buying into it. Whenever someone start putting their money up and buying into your idea, you got to know that it has value. So
Yes,
continue the branding and doing what you guys are doing. And, hey, I'm looking forward to one day seeing you guys, much bigger, because I really believe in you guys.
I appreciate that.
Anything else you want to leave with the listeners before we go?
If you guys want more information about the Crappie Fest, the Crappie Tournament, if you want to call me and talk about crappie fishing, my phone number is 954-650-0456. Or you can go to www.jiganomicsoutdoors.com. That's JIGANOMISC. CSOUTDOORS.com, Jiganomicsoutdoors.com, and you'll see all the info on there about the events and what we do, our jigs, the shirt I have on, the apparel, all that's on there. But yeah, just come out and learn about crappie fishing, man. Just get involved. It's a great sport. Fishing is actually a sport. For everybody that wants to debate me about it, it's a sport. Okay. Yeah, that's basically it. Just thanks for having us on, man. I really appreciate it.
And thank you again. Speaking with Mr. Derek Moore of Jiganomics, and you can visit them on the World Wide Web .jiganomicsoutdoors.com, or you could call 954-650-0456. And again, we thanking Mr. Derek for being here today. One time for his big brother, and we just are excited about the big event they got on Lake Okeechobee. It's happening at Okeechobee, December 21st, 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. They'll teach you some tricks and tips you need to learn how to catch some speck out there on Lake Okeechobee. You're listening to the Gospel Station. Keep it locked in as the gospel continues right here. We're the education, information, and inspiration station of South Florida. They call us Sugar 900.
Serving the Glades, the Palm Beaches, and all of South Florida. We are Sugar 900, WSWN Belglade. Online at sugar900.com. A Sugar broadcasting station.